Emily had gone off on a holiday. She'd gone to, I think, Madagascar or Jordan to run an ultra marathon. And I literally, the morning I was picking her up from the airport, had an email from ITV's This Morning saying, we'd Google bell tents, you're number one. We need a bell tent on Wednesday at the studio on the South Bank in London. So I collected Emily from Heathrow or Gatwick, and we're driving back. She's utterly shattered. They've got 2 kids in the back of the van. And I'm going, do you want to be on This Morning on Wednesday? And she's like, sweat and dust pouring from being on the flight. She's like, we are. And I'm like, I know we are, but I still had to ask. So we literally had to drop everything.
Welcome to Rad-Ventures, the podcast that takes you on an exhilarating journey through the lives of entrepreneurs and business owners. Today's guest, one of the reasons for the podcast, an online visibility specialist, former temporary resident of Weymouth, one half of Yellow Tuxedo, ringmaster of the digital circus. It's Alan James Braithwaite.
Cue explosions and everything, Radmin. I'm so pleased to be here.
You're most welcome. So just before you tell us all about yourself and what you do professionally, I'm also proud to say that I am your sponsor in your van life journey. Am I not?
You are. This is all very like our paths are very much entwined in many, many different ways, aren't they? It is fair to say. Well, do you want to know what we do kind of professionally, or shall I kind of answer the van life, the Weymouth stuff, or should I do a little bit of both?
Do professionally first, then let's talk about Weymouth, van life, etc.
Yeah, okay. So the short answer for what we do, because I wouldn't want to go off in a kind of waffle tangent, so I'm just going to keep it nice and succinct, is Emily and I, we're Yellow Tuxedo. We are online visibility specialists, which basically is, let's be honest, is jargony rubbish. But we're just here to show other businesses how to use the internet properly for their business, right? To stop looking at small silos, to stop thinking about it in a kind of marketing process, and start thinking about it in more of a workflow, something, you're being visible rather than specific actions. That could be marketing. That's what we do. And we do it in a couple of ways. We do it, we have the digital circus, which is our community and kind of access to many. And then we did some kind of soul searching at somewhere through the adventure we've been on. And we went, this business stuff can all be a bit serious at times, and we didn't want it to be serious, and therefore the whole funpreneur and the funpreneur's big day out came online. And next year there's going to be more than just spoiler alert. Emily and I haven't even agreed this properly, but next year there are going to be smaller funpreneur events propping up the big day out. Yeah, that's it. We haven't got any more information than that. We've just agreed that's what we want to do. So yeah, Yellow Tuxedo, digital circus, funpreneur, having fun whilst being the best and growing online and making sure we all achieve our goals. That's it, really.
Fantastic. So Rad-Ventures exclusive there. There are going to be smaller funpreneur events.
Yes, fact.
Heard it here first. Cool. So Yellow Tuxedo, the online visibility specialists. Now, presumably, when you were at school, you did not want to become an online visibility specialist. I guess little Alan probably wanted to be an astronaut or something like that. Talk us through those days.
No, I did not. Look, what I find amazing and blows my tiny mind is the sort of stuff we all do now didn't exist, right? And I'm in my... Oh, blimey, I don't think I've ever said this out loud before. I'm in my late 40s. I say my actual age, but I've never said late 40s before. That's painful.
Oh, yeah,
I know, right?
That's painful, just hearing that.
It is. Are you over 40? I forget.
No, I'm late 30s.
Well, I thought you were, but I was just trying to kind of not feel lonely here in the late 40s for a minute.
Yeah, no, it's Emily always thinks I'm over 40 already, but I'm going to be 39 next month. And like when I said it out loud the other day, I was like, oh my god, like 39, that's nearly 40.
Right, side thing before I go back to what I wanted to do when I was younger. The only thing I would say is I do absolutely believe you've got more usable life from 40 onwards, presuming you live long enough, to beforehand, because 0 to 18 is pretty much taken up. Fun,
Yeah.
granted, and exploratory and all these other things. But really, you've only kind of got 18 to 40. That's 22 years. Whereas 40 onwards, as long as you're active and able and everything else, you've got a lot of usable life to kind of use and not give in on. So it's all
Hopefully,
good.
by 40, you've kind of got your proverbial together.
Have you?
No.
No, nor have I. Nor have I.
Yeah, I've got the old hold fast. And that's my life plan.
Right, hold. That's it. Someone once said to me, "I want to live like a roller coaster. I want to go 100 miles an hour and kind of skid to a halt at the finish." And I think I might have taken that a little bit too literal. I think you probably should stop at some stations here and there on the way and just take 5 minutes. So shall I go back to what I wanted to be when I was younger?
Yeah. You go back to what you want to be when you're younger. Yeah, that's it.
There were three things really that always stick out for me. One was watching Blue Peter as a very young child. I wanted to make bosses in the ceiling of a church. Don't know why. The carpentry, the creativity, the making things, probably something like that. And then the other two things that always stuck in my head from slightly later on, kind of teenage years, was I either wanted to be a Radio 1 DJ. This was the mid to late 90s. It was prime time before I was going to, I won't say it, before not everything was as glossy and shiny as it used to be when we all lived in ignorance. And the other one was I wanted to be James Bond. And I think I wanted to literally be James Bond. I didn't want to be a spy per se. I wanted to be James Bond, which obviously, well, who knows? Do we actually know if there are spies out there who live their life like James Bond?
Don't know. I think the government would deny it because of that whole license to kill thing, wouldn't they? Would
Yeah.
that be something against the Geneva Convention or something?
I don't know. I feel, Radmin, we may be entering a world we know nothing about, but could happily talk about.
Yes, I think so too. And on this show so far, we haven't had a fact checker,
Okay.
so
I
so
am
we can
set
just
up for
spurt out
fact
whatever we
checking.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have it later. But okay, so bosses in a church manufacturer, Radio 1 DJ, James Bond.
Yes.
Not even a spy. You wanted to be James Bond. Which James
Yes.
Bond was it that inspired you?
Right. So I've got two answers to this. Because I have the fastest fingers in Yellow Tuxedo, I Googled, do license to kills exist whilst you were asking me that question? And which luckily the question was a James Bond question. So under Article 7 of the Intelligence Services Act, the Home Secretary may provide British agents acting abroad with immunity against prosecution for those actions in a UK court.
Well, can you quote the source as well, seeing as we've fact checked that one too?
Yeah, I'm really sorry, and I should have checked the source before I said this. It's the Guardian, not the Gordian, the Guardian.
Oh,
So,
okay. Guardian. The Guardian's not too bad, I suppose. Middle of the
Yeah.
road. Middle of the road. Centre right.
Yeah, but we all know
No,
that the news
centre left.
doesn't.
Sorry, I think.
I don't know. I lose track of it. The news doesn't need to publish the truth, which is one of the kind of sticking points. Anyway, what James Bond
Yes,
did I want to be?
maybe the Home Secretary should provide the newspapers and news outlets with a license to print, so that they can
I
print
like
whatever they want without repercussions.
I do like that. Well, they pretty much do have a license to print anything they want. But so I grew up with Sean Connery and Roger Moore. Now, I think Sean Connery was my favourite. But then, because of my age, my memories are all a bit blurred. And then Pierce Brosnan came into it. So really, it was probably Sean Connery and a bit of Pierce that made me want to be James Bond. But Daniel Craig in my head's the best. I was born in 1978. Like, I was fully brought up on Sean Connery and Roger Moore. Daniel Craig's the best, absolutely. But I did like Pierce. I didn't see Pierce as comical as some people say. I actually really enjoyed his time as James Bond. What about you? Who was your go-to James Bond?
I think because I grew up in the 90s, and so every Sunday and Christmas there was a James Bond film on. And so I think initially it was Roger Moore, but then obviously in my prime was Piers Morgan. Not Piers Morgan.
Piers
He's not a
Morgan.
secret agent. Piers Brosnan, and then obviously, yeah, I agree. Daniel Craig is the best one. Interestingly, I also wanted to be within the Secret Service or MI5 or MI6 when I was in my youth, and because I wasn't in the military or anything. I thought I could perhaps get in via science or something, but actually, I wanted to be the guy, the man with the golden gun, as it were. Yeah. But when I looked into it in my late teens, early 20s, I went in and filled on the little online quizzes and played the little online games that you used to be able to do. And I'm really good at the, you're at a restaurant. What's your sister going to have when you're undercover? And your sister's going to have, the courgette bake because she's a vegetarian because you read that in the notes. Really good at that because I know what to expect, what they're going to ask. But when it comes to doing the online kind of assessment test, it was like, do you mind being London based? I was like, yes. I mean, no. Do you, are you, can you use the camera? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. Can you do that? Yes. Are you between the heights of 5'8" and 5'10" or something? Which I am 6.5 or 6'1", depending on the tape measure. And so I was like, no. And actually it says that you can't be in surveillance if you were over the height because you'd stand out. Now, that was a good few years ago, so it may have changed. But you're even taller than me.
By about ½ inch, 1 inch, something like that. So I say I'm 6'2", but I could be like 6'1 3/4". But I also applied and had the same, stumbling block. But I mean, I know we've spoken about this before, but surely, if everyone knows you've got to be within those height ranges in the Secret Service, if they recruited us as tall chaps, then it would be like a double bluff, and people would be going, well, they can't be spies. We know they've got to be under 5'11", and we're like, ha ha. Gotcha with my license to kill.
I think they've changed. I think they've probably changed it now. It's probably like heightism or something. I don't know. Interestingly enough, if someone asks me in the supermarket if they can, if I could reach something down for them, I apologize and say that I identify as a short person.
And how does that go down?
Not very well. But then I pass them the thing anyway, and then they go, oh, "There you go. I'm only joking." But actually, one of my jobs, I was talking to a guy about this whole being over 5'11" or whatever it is, whatever the measurement was. And he said, oh, interestingly, he used to work near Whitehall. And he said, yes, they are all unremarkable people that hang around there.
Well, all I'm taking, granted, you may need to be unremarkable to be a Secret Service agent, but I'm going to be all right. There's both of those jobs, the Radio 1 DJ and the Secret Service agent, they don't really align with my kind of personal values, right? Like, I don't really, I can't say this without coming across like I've got a big ego, but I'm happy to share. I don't really want to be unremarkable. And I don't know if I would take a job flying around the world killing people. By the way, that's not all they do, but that's the headline for the sake of this. Because I also quite like sitting on the sofa with my wife and kids on a Sunday or a raining Saturday afternoon drinking hot chocolate, and I'm not sure that you can do that. I feel you'd have to give over your life to be a really good, unremarkable agent. Like, you can't go home. You can't go, I've got to go home. The Tesco delivery shop's done. And they're like, but Secret Agent Jeff's currently in Chechnya being you can't go, sorry, Gov, I'm out of it. I just, that's my style, for being employed.
I think that is the case for both MI5 and MI6 agents and Radio 1 DJ presenters.
Yes. Yeah, because at the time I wanted to be Radio 1 DJ and I applied to be in their internship in 2001. I was currently, at that time, very active in scouting, still do scouts now. So I spent pretty much like once a month, I'd be on a camp, part of the UK, doing walking, climbing, caving. And so then once again, I had the same predicament, it's like, I don't want to go away on work. I was the only person in retail. I spent years in retail who, when the shop opened on launch week, I'm like, I I can't make it. I've booked in a wedding for my mate's wedding, and they're like, it's opening week. We've been planning for this for 6 months. I'm like, I know, but it's my mate's wedding. I've already booked in for 7 months, which was true, no lying. And I just don't want to work.
Okay, so 2001 for Radio 1 DJ Apprentice or intern, that was it. So that segues ish kind of into Weymouth, which I think you said was 2004 when you were here.
I think so. That sounds about right, yes.
So you clearly weren't interning at Radio 1.
Correct.
You're clearly not jet setting around the world killing people. What are you doing in Weymouth in 2004?
Well, when you ask the question like that, I'm wondering if I made some questionable life choices, right? Because when you offer being a Secret Service agent, being a Radio 1 DJ, and there's another input I'm going to bring in a second, to then why was I in Weymouth? I am questioning my life choices. So what happened was, straight out of school, I'd went into like a proper job. Okay, a proper job, kind of. I was a retail EPOS engineer, so field engineer fixing tills, right? How exciting, how unremarkable. And so I took a career break to go traveling. Visited some countries, had a fantastic time, came back and went like, what shall I do next? This was around the kind of Radio 1 and applying to be a spy. I then applied to be an air steward for Virgin Airways because I thought adventure and travel and things like that, and I didn't get that. So then I'm piecing together bits, so this might not be true chronological order. And then I spent some time working at a scout campsite in the New Forest at Fernycrofts, which was cool. That was quite fun and adventurous. And then I went, I want to live by the sea. So I was in a pub with my friend, and I tossed a beer mat, and one side of this beer mat was Brighton and the other side was Weymouth, and Weymouth won. So I literally the next day, I borrowed a convertible Suzuki Vitara off a friend of ours, loaded it up with a tent and some camping equipment, and I literally the next day, I drove to Weymouth, put my tent up in a field, and I walked down into the high street. I see, now I'm doing this, it doesn't sound as bad a life choice. And walked up and down the high street, going in all the pubs, going, have you got any jobs available? And got a job in the rectory, which is what we always talk about, and spent a summer working in the rectory. I only lived in the tent for about 6 weeks, and then one of the guys had she had a spare room available, so I rented her spare room before then leaving and going off travelling again.
Ah, good. And a lovely place it is. And it's the rectory, or the old rectory, was a great place. Unfortunately, I didn't arrive in Weymouth until 2005, so we did kind of miss each other.
Yes. Wouldn't that have been cool if our story actually started way back then by chance?
It may well have, if our dates are right. I mean, we are both around in the 40 zone. So we might be getting a bit confused because it is, 20 years ago now? So
it is. I think I turned 26 in Weymouth. I think I had my 26th birthday. But I'd have to check.
Was I? I think my first birthday here was 20. But yeah, like you say, I'd have to check too. Okay, so I think going back briefly, air host would have suited you down to a T.
I would have loved it, but I can't sit on the sofa on a Friday night.
No, you might struggle with that bit.
Yes. But I would have loved it. It would have been cool.
Now, I know, obviously, if people haven't worked out yet, I know quite a bit about you because we talk quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But also, you have your own podcast, and I alluded to you being the reason for the podcast earlier. So when I first discovered Yellow Tuxedo way back when, about 4 years ago, it was in the glory days of Instagram, and it was Matt King. You'd done an Instagram live, I think, with Matt, and then I started following you guys, and then eventually I joined the Digital Circus, your membership group, and as part of that, you then recently, I say recently, last year, started the Digital Circus Live podcast,
Yeah.
which is a podcast all about your members and the lives, and it centers around the lives rather working from home rather than the business, right? Correct me if I'm wrong somewhere along here.
A little,
But at the
little
moment,
bit,
I
a
believe.
little bit. Well,
Okay.
we like to think it's about your life that got you to the business. So what we're curious, that's what it's meant to be about. So it's meant to be about everything you did before the business and then a little bit about the business. So, like as an online visibility specialist, I don't really want to chat to someone for 45 minutes or half an hour about about online visibility. Personally, I would find that rather boring. Accepting that it's kind of my zone, Whereas what Emily and I are really curious about is the people behind the business. When you go networking, you deliver your elevator pitches and what you are, your titles, your boxes, you deliver your box that you fit into. But really, the exciting conversations happen in the loo, on the stairs, as you bump into each other, as you realise that person's a runner, as you realise this and that, as you understand now that the reason they're that type of coach is because of something that happened 20 years ago. And that's what we're interested in, the person behind the business.
Okay, so I was close-ish, but and you're quite right. Don't get me started on networking because we will be here for ages.
Yeah, agreed.
But is it? So I think there's 45 episodes now.
I believe so, yeah.
I've listened to 42 and a half of them. So this, as well as talking, quite a few times a week, let's say, and listening to your 42 and a half episodes of your podcast. This is how I know some bits about you. So I know that once you did your Tills experience, you then ended up doing some IT stuff, and you were, what are they called? IT geek.
Geek Squad.
Geek Squad, that's it.
Yeah.
So what I'm alluding to here is not only providing information to our watchers and listeners about how well I know you. I'm also now, we're going from Weymouth and working in a bar to you've done a bit more traveling to how you get back, because ultimately we're interested in how you've gone from wanting to make bosses in churches, a Radio 1 DJ or James Bond, to how you became a founder of Yellow Tuxedo.
Yeah, I'm glad you said founder of Yellow Tuxedo rather than an online visibility specialist, because it's actually, I feel it's more correct, So anyway, apologies, I interrupted.
You've got for me, Yellow Tuxedo is like this. It's like a business mind map. You've got Yellow Tuxedo written in the middle, and then you kind of draw all the things off. So you've got podcast hosts, online visibility specialists, membership group hosts, events hosts, and so it kind of all spreads around from the middle section. So for me, you're not just an online visibility specialist. You are an entrepreneur and business owner, amongst other things.
Thank you.
So yeah, tell us about Geek Squad, because I know, and then I know after Geek Squad, there's a couple more bits that we need to slot in, and then we can talk about Yellow Tuxedo and the podcast, the Digital Service membership, and don't forget we got to slot in the quickfire questions too.
Okay. Well, I can get us from Geek Squad to Yellow Tuxedo relatively succinctly, because I've been thinking about it as you were talking. Right, hold on. First things first. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Absolutely. And for being on it. Truly, truly, truly appreciated. Because we all, as business owners, put this content out there and we're hoping that someone's going to listen to it. So actually knowing someone has listened to it is quite humbling, actually, in a roundabout way. So thank you so much. Geek Squad's interesting because the reason I got back into IT after spending some time there was because basically I spent a couple of years bumming around, for want of a better phrase, working in bars in Weymouth and campsites and travelling. And I decided and some temping, living in Bournemouth, temping. And I decided to chase some money. I did. And interestingly, I missed out on a personal life event that I wanted to attend for this job. So something must have been quite right at the time for me to go, I'm not going to go. Some friends of mine had just got back from climbing Everest, and it was their welcome home presentation. And I missed it. And to this day, I go, what? Blimey. Anyway, so I went to Geek Squad, which was an American company that had come to the UK in a relationship with Carphone Warehouse and Best Buy. And they were in the States, they are an IT company for, B2C. So your home tech and everything else. And this is going back a bit, it's probably more relevant now than ever before. And so this is, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, if not a bit longer. And it was cool. And they had an amazingly strong brand. So my time in Carphone Warehouse, Geek Squad, Best Buy was where I did all my commercial work, where I got my head around a strong brand and why, where I realized I didn't wish to be employed in a kind of corporate environment at that time in my life, because I don't want to write it off. You don't want to burn any bridges. You never know, right? So, and it was really fascinating, and I had some really interesting roles. As part of the integration, I was leading a team of Geek Squad agents, we were called, on presentations around the UK, training the Carphone Warehouse team on why they needed Geek Squad in their life and how to sell it and how to integrate it into their shops day to day. And all of these experiences came together. The extremely commercial mindset of Carphone Warehouse, the startup mentality of Best Buy coming over the UK and starting up, and what goes into starting up, the operations, the processes and everything else, the marketing, the sales. And with Geek Squad, it was the strong brand. Best Buy had a very strong brand. It was the first time Best Buy's values included fun. And we spent, whatever I said earlier, 6 or 9 months setting up the shop before it opened. And I was part of the middleman. I was head of Geek Squad. I was the deputy of counter intelligence. I worked behind the IT counter. And we'd spent 6, 9 months going, this is fun, this is amazing, and having fun and doing karaoke because the shop doors were shut, and doing all this stupid stuff to have as much fun as we can. And when the shop opened, all of the staff started complaining it was now boring because they were serving customers. And it was like, so what do you expect? Now I'm not saying fun has to stop, but we clearly now have to stand there ready to serve customers. Just because we're not going, let's all sing karaoke, doesn't mean you can't have fun. And there was these really interesting mini lessons about how to run a business, how people and do everything. And it was actually, this is the first time I've ever really thought about it like this. But all of these mini lessons came together from these 3 brands. And then I got made redundant. And I'd one of my bosses in the Geek Squad world, we used to sit there drinking coffee, and he would say to me, Alan, why do you have this job? Why aren't you running an outdoors company or whatever at the time? That was or a race. Why aren't you putting on a race? Because I've always been into running and everything else. And we used to literally sit there. My boss would go, I don't know why you've got this job. Blah blah blah. And Richard Harris, if you're listening, that was you. I think he lives in New Zealand now. I might drop him a message. And it was really interesting, and I was clearly coming to a place in my life where a lot had come together in one place. So anyway, I got made redundant. It was fine. Carphone Warehouse didn't quite see the value in IT services, which actually, when you say it like that, who does see the value in it? So they cleared out loads of us. But also, I did a lot of HR-y stuff as well. I'd done training, learning and development. We'd recruited 1,000 Geek Squad agents and then made 1,000 Geek Squad agents redundant. A couple of years later, we'd done some brilliant things to learn. And when we got made redundant, there was 4 of us, had a quarter of the country each as deputy field marshals. And one went back into head of operations for a sub role in Carphone Warehouse. One got head of family rooms for Apple Europe. The third one did some regional manager role. I like to tell this story. I actually applied for a job in Apple. So a colleague of mine, and like same as me, she applied for a job and got like head of whatever in Europe. And I got offered in-store kind of help desk, like, and I was like, perhaps I didn't sell myself properly here, right? And anyway, in the end, I set up a marquee company, as you do, right? And the bit that's interesting when you look at having fun, outdoors, adventures. That's what I do. I still don't really know what I want to do when I'm older. I still think about boss making, Radio 1 DJ and James Bond. So I still don't really know, but I do know I want to have fun. I want to go on adventures. I like being outdoors. And there's this fourth part that kind of comes from Scouts about sort of personal development, achieving goals. I quite like if I can do anything to kind of support you in your kind of goal direction, whatever, I'll do it if you're putting the effort in. You know, if you're not putting the effort in, I find it a bit trickier to kind of G you off the sofa. But if you're putting the effort in and not quite sure what to do the next step, and I happen to have some information that be beneficial to you, then I'm quite happy to share. So that's where this kind of wedding marquee business came, a couple of scout mates and everything. And Emily at the time, so we were at a wedding fair one day with our wedding marquee, and someone said, do you know anyone who does bell tents? So I drove home and said, Emily, people are asking for bell tents, one person. So Emily started a bell tent business. Now, I know you and I have had this conversation before, but a couple of the interesting things about both those businesses, all three of our businesses, Yellow Tuxedo, Three Men and a Marquee, the marquee company, and Bay Lily Bell Tents. We started all three businesses with £0. Literally, Three Men and a Marquee, I built a website for a couple of quid at the time and a Facebook page, I think, and did Instagram. And then when we started getting bookings, then we thought we had some money. We did have money to not invest, because that sounds like I'm blimmin' Stephen Bartlett. We had some money to buy a marquee with, right? But technically, we started the business with no money because we didn't need that money to start the business. We needed that money down the line, right? And we knew we were going to have money coming in from the sales and the rentals. So I just never forget, like, we'd literally been on Facebook and the website, had a meeting, we kind of knew marquees, right? It's not completely punting in the dark. And we put together this package, and someone handing us a check for £6,000 in the middle of a field, when we didn't own a marquee at the time, felt really kind of bizarre. But you're like, oh, poo, we better put a marquee up now. And Bay Lily was pretty much the same, and Yellow Tuxedo not too dissimilar, because we're more of a service company, B2B, rather than the other two. So I've always found that interesting. Do you want to know more about Three Men and a Marquee or Bay Lily Bell Tents? Because I've not let you speak, sorry.
No, it's cool. It's obviously, this is about your journey, so it's all about your show, and you are doing a fabulous job. You maybe should. Oh no, you have your own podcast.
Yeah, because I'm not a Radio 1 DJ.
No, because you're not a Radio 1 DJ. Okay, so one of my favourite stories of yours is how, I think it's the tents rather than the marquees. You started a new website, and later on you got an inquiry the same evening, and from there, as I understand it, somehow there is a journey in there somewhere, which I'm sure you'll elaborate on. You ended up on This Morning.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a cool story. And I need to back up a little bit, because I think there's an integral part of the story that fits into Yellow Tuxedo. So when you're in the wedding world, if anyone's listening into the wedding world, right, what you did back then to market your business, you basically went in loads of Facebook groups where brides and grooms were asking for someone to bake a cake, and you'd reply with, I can provide a bell tent. And you would go to wedding fairs where you'd pay a couple of £100 for the privilege. And in our case, wedding fairs were in the winter, because we were summer weddings with our bell tents. And you would be at the bottom of a garden in the rain, which no one would come out and see you because it was raining. And then you'd have a wet tent to dry, right? And you'd paid for the privilege. And we sat there and went, this is utter garbage. There has to be a better way to grow our business. So what we did, everything we'd kind of been running away from our sort of corporate-y, and Emily was in civil service roles, and she'd done some quite big projects. So she'd sort of done, it's irrelevant that I say she was civil service and I corporate, because we did the same thing, just in different industries. And so we brought back everything we'd kind of been running away from and moved everything online. And we came up with what we now call in Yellow Tuxedo an online ecosystem, blah, blah, blah jargon. I shouldn't say that because that's rather dismissive. We came up with this online ecosystem, but we didn't quite know what we were doing. That was massively, massively supported by optimized content that works for you while you're asleep, with a lot of personal brand within it. They're still buzzwords, but it's true. And it was working very, very well for us, to the extent the story you're mentioning was Emily had gone off on a holiday. She'd gone to, I think, Madagascar or Jordan to run an ultra marathon. And I literally, the morning I was picking her up from the airport, had an email from ITV's This Morning saying, we'd Google bell tents, you're number one. We need a bell tent on Wednesday at the studio on the South Bank in London. So I collected Emily from Heathrow or Gatwick, and we're driving back. She's utterly shattered. They've got 2 kids in the back of the van. And I'm going, do you want to be on This Morning on Wednesday? And she's like, sweat and dust pouring from being on the flight. She's like, we are. And I'm like, I know we are, but I still had to ask. So we literally had to drop everything. I can't remember what time of the year it was now, but we were able to do it, is the key bit. And like the kids were still quite young. So it was like dropping them off, getting this ready, getting that ready. And then, our bell tent was on ITV This Morning. We weren't ready for it. And our website crashed. We had something like 6,000 hits overnight from being on ITV's This Morning. And the key parts are of that, other than it just being a cool story, right? So business ownership for me is not always about the money. I know that sounds absurd because it is about the money, because I need to buy some shoes for the kids. But it's as much about the ridiculously cool stories and adventures you go on while you're doing it that may not necessarily make you any more money. They all contribute somewhere, but they absolutely make it enjoyable and fun. And that is so important. And that's where that ITV This Morning one sits. It did make us more money, but, it also sits as just a cool story to, like, we had celeb bookings. We were number one on Google for bell tent hire in the area, because we'd worked hard in it. And, we had, I guess I can say them nowadays, we had Mark Owen from Take That, we had Kate Winslet for her husband's 40th birthday, and some others, Venga Boys, and some people off Strictly Come Dancing and things like that. It was cool times. It was very, very cool. And the other bit, which I meant to mention in the kind of Geek Squaddy times, all of this broad skill set Emily and I both had really was starting to play. Like, we weren't just, a bit like Yellow Tuxedo, we didn't just provide a bell tent. We were outdoor wedding experts or specialists, whatever we said. We were there. We could support you with your entire outdoor wedding. We weren't just going to provide a bell tent and run. And that was really important for us personally, with fun, adventures, and that bit I talked about, kind of supporting others. And if we have information or knowledge that can be shared, or stock, then we will share it to make your experience, time, achievement better.
Yeah, it's all about that, delivering that service, isn't it? For me, for some of my clients, inevitably being around certain bits of information all day, every day, you kind of take those on board, and then you find yourself, oh, look, there's an article on that. Just have a quick read, and then your knowledge expands,
Yes.
and then that provides you with better understanding on how to deliver a better service.
Totally does. Totally.
And ultimately, you go.
No, I was going to say, it's that whole jack of all trades, isn't it? The narrative suggests, I mean, it doesn't as much nowadays, right? Let's be brutally honest. But when I was young, the narrative suggested you should specialize. And I probably spent a good decade or so going, I'm clearly a generalist, and really beating myself up about it because I couldn't choose what to do. I didn't have a standout skill, which nowadays my standout skill is being me, right? Emily's standout skill is being her. There are standout skills. And And it was a really interesting time, the 80s and the 90s, because we still had this, like, what are you going to specialize in? What are you going to choose to do at 13 for the rest of your life? And it's like, I don't bloody know. I've got no idea, but I'm being told I need to become something. And it's like, I don't know what I want to do. And, actually, sometimes I think about being an architect, because it comes back to that boss making and creativity and outdoors, actually, and adventure. It actually ticks quite a lot, and helping people. So architecture sits in my head as perhaps I could have gone to university and done something. So sorry, Radmin. Apologies, mate.
No, it's cool. It's all about the journey. That's what this podcast is all about. So this is an ideal opportunity to fill in with the quick fire questions.
Right.
So sometimes they're quick, sometimes they're not. We'll see how we go. Are you ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Now, you've opted to completely and utterly freestyle these, so you don't even know what's coming. We know that you're in your late 40s now. Ooh. What's been your favourite age so far?
I'm very happy now, other than being in my late 40s. Very late 20s, early 30s. 30 for a good couple of years was pretty fun. I had to think a lot back in my teens and 20s. So I think if I go back, it's like I wasn't quite sure who I was, what I was doing, what I wanted to do, and everything else. So kind of exiting that period, meeting Emily, good times with Emily. So I'm going to go for roughly 30-ish. That's been good times. What's yours, out of curiosity?
I think it's around now. I'm starting to get a feel for who I am, starting to find what I like. And you start with that whole, it's not that you don't care about what people think of you. It has less of an impact.
Agreed.
And you realize it's probably more about them than it is about you. Because ultimately we care. And if you don't care, then there is probably something wrong with you. So I think around now I'm getting to that point, and funny, like you should say that as I approach 40 and, have your proverbial together. So perhaps heading towards 40 is not all bad.
No, it is good. Now, here's a quick question. As fathers, should we let our children discover this all for themselves and potentially be 30-ish until they are truly happy with some of the things in their world and or should we see if we can make it happen quicker for them? I don't know how to butter that up in a better way, but I think the gist is there.
I think ultimately the main thing you want for your either children or child is you want them to be happy, and obviously you do want them to have a nice life, but at the same time, you can't lead a horse to water. Sorry, you can lead a horse. What am I talking about?
I was nodding away going, that's so profound.
I'm going to have to put that bit out because that sounds absolute dog.
No, keep it in. Keep it in.
Hang on. So you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, is what I was actually trying to say. It's because I've got thoughts backed up, Alan. I'm like, hang on, say that in a sec, say that in a sec, say that in a sec. And it's like...
I'm like that.
So yeah,
so
you can the notepad's here. Actually, it is.
I have seen you scribble. Actually,
it's the Poulton's Park serious fun business that I got from my Funpreneur Day with you at Poulton's Park.
And interestingly, I have a Yellow Tuxedo sold Funpreneur's notebook.
I've got one of those somewhere. It's around here somewhere.
Available on Amazon. Just type in Funpreneur.
Right. Yes, we'll put those in the show notes.
Yes, thank you.
We'll also put your video of, which I think this is what I was going to say earlier, that I said I've forgotten what I was going to say. We'll put the video of the ITV This Morning's thing in the show notes too, so people can go and watch you on the telly.
Ooh, nice. I might share that on the socials this afternoon now.
There you go. You can have that one for free.
Thank you very much.
You know what we could do? I'll cut this as a magic clip on Riverside. 2 affiliate links available. And then you could perhaps slice it together and then put it into your YouTube video.
That would be cool. The one going out today. Right. Anyway, back on track.
Right,
What's the next question?
Yeah, sorry. No, hang on. I've got to. So you can lead the children to the watering pond, but you can't make them drink ultimately. So, however much advice you give them, trying to enable them to get to the point in their late 30s, perhaps early, they can take it on board, but without that experience, they don't know that that's what's coming. I think that's my view on it. I don't know if you agree. I might be talking absolute rubbish.
No, I think
but,
you're right. I think you're right.
All kids are different, aren't they?
Yeah.
All right, question 2. What is your favorite quote? It could be a movie quote, a meme, a motivational quote, or another quote.
Right. So I am not blessed with a memory where I get to remember lots of quotes. Like, so Ricky Locker, you've been on with, who's been on your podcast and our podcast. Like, when I chat to him, he's like, oh yeah, I remember such and such author, page 52, when they said this. And I'm like, how the heck do you remember that? My brain does not work like that, right? When I hear a song, I don't hear the lyrics, I only hear the melody. And Emily's singing it after 3 listens. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that. But I do have, and really, I'm quite a kind of simple guy. I like a lot of salt on my food, stuff like that. Not as in you need to see a doctor. I was just explaining I don't have a delicate palate was the point of that, right? And I guess quotes are a bit like that for me. So I really like Tom Cruise Maverick, don't think, just do. And I think in our kind of solopreneur, freelancery, small businessy world, whatever label it's got, there's a lot of people kind of thinking about something a little bit longer than they should, and they should just do. And that little saying worked very well for me with some of the public speaking and the keynotes we've done, because I'd sit there going, have I done this? Have I done this? Have I done this? Can I remember that? What was the 5th bullet point I need to remember? And really, I know my topic. I'm quite happy with who I am within reason. And, you know, I'm quite happy with how I'm delivering. So really, for me, in that instance, don't think, just do. The other thing, now this is also linked back to the Funpreneur's Big Day Out, I'm not trying to crowbar it in, it's just where it sort of reared its head. I was chatting to, also been on your podcast, Suze Freer and Emily McEwen, who were there, and you as well. We were in the same group in the morning, weren't we? And one of the things I was talking about was like, what a privilege. We get to do this. And we get to do this, I use when running, when it really hurts. When I get up early to go for a run, it really hurts. I use it in business, and I use it quite a lot. We get to do this. And we were going up on one of the rides on Poulton's Park, but I can't think what it's called. It was yellow, and the start's uphill. And
it's
Susan,
the one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. And Susan and Emily shouted, Alan, we get to do this at me. And I'm like, they're right, you know, we are at work. We are, and I'm not saying if you're employed, you can't get to do it. That's not the point of it. The point is we get to do this. That is the point, you know. So it's about being right for you and what you want to do. And if you're doing what you want to do, then you are winning at life.
I love it. Okay. Question. I don't want to just dismiss all that. That was fantastic.
No, that's fine. I'm all right moving on from it.
Cool. Google Suite or Microsoft 365?
Oh, Google any day of the week. I'm not an Android fan. I just feel, you know, the challenge with Microsoft over the years is, and this is just my opinion, right? There'd be some tech person who blows this out the water in about 5 seconds. But I've just always found with Microsoft, Microsoft is a bit like your mum and dad getting their energy from British Gas, right? And going, yeah, but it's always been British Gas. And I'm like, just because it's always been like that doesn't mean it's the best right way to do it, you know, because whatever company over here, not Shell, Octopus, I think we're with at the moment, Octopus is significantly cheaper. And trust me, mum, it's the same energy coming into your house. You know, it's like broadband. I'm going to pay BT for my phone line and internet. Why is that? Well, I've always given BT my money. I know, but they're expensive back in these, you know, and I kind of feel Microsoft's a bit like that, right? They were the first on the scene. They've been around one of the longest, and actually Google's kind of the cool kid that came in with quite a cool product. And most people don't realize how much you can do on Google that you're paying for. So then they find themselves doing other things. So perhaps the moral is for Google to work harder.
Perhaps. Yeah, I mean, I have had multiple conversations on Google Suite or Microsoft 365, and there's always a different take on it. And yours has been the most interesting so far, so I like it.
Well, I have to admit, full disclosure, I'm an Apple user, right? And one of the many reasons I'm an Apple user, other than it just makes me smile when I turn it on, is because for my simple brain, it is relatively simple. And at the time when I adopted Apple, which was, I don't know, I had a white 13-inch MacBook back. They only did them in black and white. So then I got the white one, and the black one was like the next level up, I think, had the bigger processor. I can't remember. Oh, I was working for Geek Squad at the time, so whenever that was. And it was all quite simple. It was like you can do all this on Microsoft, but at the time, Apple took the 10% you use regularly and consistently and made it easier and simpler to use. And that's what I found. Like, Microsoft's great, but when you load up Outlook, or used to, because I've not looked at it for a while, you'd have 16 billion options along the top of your kind of thing. And Excel had 30,000 choices. And I'm like, I just want to know how to merge two work cells, So that's my thoughts on it.
Cool. Right. I'm going to cut this slightly short. How many unread emails do you have on your phone right now?
117, I think it is.
And I bet most of them, none of them are work ones. Most of them are all mailing list options, aren't they?
No, I'll tell you what, a lot, ish. A lot of them are reminders to myself. So when I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep, I email myself a reminder, and then I write it down, and I leave it marked as unread, and periodically I'll go through and kind of do it. There will be newsletters. Now, I won't subscribe to any newsletter I don't want to receive. And I do like to read them. So there's an element of marking as unread until I get round to reading them. And no, there's no client. I mean, if there's a businessy client one, I've forgotten about it, which I feel guilty even saying out loud. But I use it as a bit of a filing process. So I do Scouts. So I get a lot of Scouts emails as well. It's like, Alan, you need to do some training. And I'm like, that's definitely bottom of my to-do list, however important it is. So, yes.
Yeah, of course. So 117, that's not too bad. Yesterday, someone was on, they had 34,000.
What, unread emails?
Yeah.
Is that because they're just viewing them through the preview pane?
I'm not sure, but they said basically they didn't go through them, and didn't delete out all the mailing lists and the junk and stuff like that. And but yeah, it was a little bit. I was like,
I feel they need like a professional declutterer to visit them and just help them get their heads around that. But do you not get to a point where you're like, actually, that's such a big number, I'm flexing it, So
maybe, yeah, maybe she was just like, she owned that. She owned that 33,000 or 34,000, however many it was.
Happy days, happy days.
Cool. So, final of the quickfire questions then, before we talk about what you want to do not when you grow up, if you grow up, is if you could afford any car, you don't need to worry about the finances, the money, the maintenance, anything like that. What car are you having?
Really simple. There's two. They're both vans. One is a medium wheelbase Sprinter 4x4, which I would convert not into a camper van. I feel camper vans are wasted on people with young children, because all that happens is you have bacon sarnies, spray fat everywhere, and the kids run all over it with like dog poo on their shoes, or my feral kids would. So I like the idea of a Sprinter 4x4 medium wheelbase. Or the other one. Now, this is not the one you champion me on, but the other one I like are the MAN. I think it's the MAN TGV 4x4, and it's actually the same body shape as the Crafter I sent you, but I quite prefer the MAN setup rather than the Volkswagen setup on it. So, genuinely, hand on heart, if I could have any vehicle in the world, that's what I would have.
Good. I like those answers. And obviously, the van that you're after, it started as a post. You were talking with Emily, and then you said you were going to. It was a YouTube video, wasn't it, that you'd seen for this yellow?
Yeah. It was bright
van.
yellow camper van. Yeah.
And yeah, you said I want one of these. Who will hold me accountable? I was like, I will. And so we started with 3-month check-ins. Now we're on 6-month check-ins, and we're always working towards that van goal.
Yeah, we are. It's the goal is about, and I guess this fits into what I want to do when I'm older. It fits directly into the goal for older is choice, right? Like basically the themes of fun and adventure and outdoors run through mine and Emily's life. And we just want to do more of it with the kids now. They're getting older. We want to do as much as we can. But it's about choice. And I want the business in a position where we can choose to go to Poulton's Park for the day, or which we can, which is fantastic, or we can choose to go off in our van and bomb down to the Alps because I love trail running, and the Alps and Chamonix are the home of trail running in Europe. And I just want to be able to do these things and it not have an impact on my life. I don't want to ask anyone for annual leave. I don't want to have work. Don't mind doing work. It's not about not doing work because I'll always do something. I'm a doer. I like doing, right? But it's about choice and, everything else that supports that. And the vans just fit directly into that. I want to be able, I do want to be able to sleep in it, but I don't necessarily want it to be a camper van. And I want to put bikes in it and whatever else, and kayaks, and zoom off and have some fun. Sometimes that fun is just going to be sitting there on the beach watching the sunset. Other times, it will be something a bit more extreme like running, or that's my thing, which I've said about 10 times. Sorry, everyone. I really do love it. It's unbelievable how much I love running. I can't, it's crazy. So yeah, there we go. That is the vehicle, the why, and the future.
I absolutely love it. And like you say, that I think for a lot of us, that is the future dream is, we found what we're good at. We found what we can sell to people in inverted commas. Without having to, go and ask for annual leave, etc., and doing it for ourselves, lining our own pockets, as if you like.
Yeah.
Again, for listeners, inverted commas. And so, yeah, I think the future is choice. Do I want to do this today? Would I rather watch the sun this afternoon and drink a cup of teas, or do I want to get some client work or this out there in the world? So,
Yeah.
great answer there. Just quickly then to wrap up, I alluded to the fact that you're one of the reasons for the podcast. So, good few years ago, I wanted to do a podcast in July 2020. Didn't really know what it was going to be about. Listened to Matt King's Sales Change podcast at the time. That's how I then discovered you and Emily. Followed you, got involved and everything. Then we talk quite a few times a week, etc. As things have gone on. And then went on your podcast as a guest, which was the first episode that you released. And then from there, I thought, I could do a podcast. And I was kind of umming and ahhing over it. But then you particularly, as well as Emily, give it the old, no, Richard, you're going to do it.
Don't think, just do.
And it was after I started DMing people in the on the Instagram. So I started DMing people, voice noting people in the DMs is how it actually was the catalyst, I suppose. And then because obviously I type all day, and then at the end of the day, you're like, oh God, do I really have to type? No, I could just speak to them. And it's only because you did that to me, I then started to do it to you, and then I got comfortable with doing it with other people. And then one person said to me, I love your little DMs in the podcast, I love your little voice notes in the DMs. You should make like an intro to them. So I made an intro. I was like, side quest accepted, made it. Then I spoke to you about it, and you were like, can you send it to me? And I thought, oh, they're going to put it in the Digital Circus members newsletter. And I thought, yeah, okay, here you go. Here it is. Here's my Dropbox link. And it wasn't the case that that's what you were doing, was it? What did you do with it, Alan?
I made it my ringtone. So now when anyone rings me, it goes in the DMs with Radmin and da 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 da. I absolutely love it because I forget as well, right? I mean, and also I'm one of those people, my phone's on silent for like 80% of the time. But then when it's not on silent, which happens to be quite a lot because I do outside a lot, so I need my phone loud so I don't miss it. And it goes off and it makes me smile every single time. Now, I need to apologize. I didn't even think about putting it into the members area for everyone to benefit from. My initial thought was selfish. How can I benefit from this amazing creation?
So from there, with the intro to the voice notes in the DMs, you basically pushed me off that cliff and was like, Richard, go make a podcast. And here we are today. I think your episode's 15 or 16. So an extreme thank you And yes, thank you for pushing me in the direction. And I really appreciate your support. So
Always a pleasure.
just to wrap up then, you have had quite the Rad-Venture. Could speak to you more on it, but we obviously have to condense it down into an episode. We're at an hour already.
Sorry about that.
So
You got two talkers. You got two talkers on a
I know,
podcast.
that's
What do you
the
think's going to
problem.
happen?
And we're like, side quest, what did you say? Like, oh, squirrels. And they're like, oh, let me tell you about squirrels. There's
Yes,
two types.
pretty much.
No, yeah, I've fallen down the rabbit hole on squirrels already. Now I can't stop thinking about them. Have you seen the launching thing? The guys with the launchers.
No. What's that? I need that now.
So basically, they set up like these squirrel traps, put nuts on it, wait for the squirrel to come. They've got a pull lever, and it launches the squirrel away.
That's pretty. Oh, no, I have seen that. Now, my quick squirrel story, because you are wrapping up, is we got squirrels completely destroying our garden at the moment because they're hiding nuts. So we found a couple of holes that have been dug up in the lawn with like a conker next to it and things like that. So the squirrels are squirreling their nuts away on our lawn.
Oh wow! So they have like an X marks a spot with a conker on the lawn.
I think their kind of spidey squirrel sense helps them remember where it is.
Oh, okay, cool. Right, so see, we fell down a squirrel rabbit hole. No, wait, squirrel hole? I don't know.
Squirrel hole.
Okay,
Squirrel hole,
so
for sure.
obviously, yes, thank you for your support with the podcast. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you being on. And we'll link everything everywhere. So tell everyone where they can find Yellow Tuxedo. That's what I'm alluding to.
Let's go. First of all, very quickly, and this will be quick, I promise. It's not a kind of side kind of tangent. I actually think a DM-based podcast should be done, like where you set a top. You know, it's a bit like when you have a conversation, but you're only allowed to say 2 words each. It's kind of a bit like that, right? And I think it could be. Anyway, we'd find it funny if no one else did, right? Where can they find us? We're Yellow Tuxedo, so at Yellow Tuxedo on all major platforms. I'm Alan Braithwaite on LinkedIn, or at Yellow Tuxedo on LinkedIn. And obviously we have funpreneur.co.uk and thedigitalcircus.co.uk. But
Fantastic.
at Yellow Tuxedo.
Okay, cool. So go find them. All sorts of affiliate links available. We'll put those all in the show notes. You can join the Digital Circus. Come on the Funpreneur Day, or listen to Alan and Emily's podcast, all 45 episodes.
Yeah, can do it. Thank you so much.
For the listeners and watchers, thank you very much for being here, if you're still here. And I will be back next week with a different guest. In the interim, peace out. Thanks for joining us on Rad-Ventures. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite platform. Always happy to chat, so hit me up in the DMs. And I'll see you on the next Rad-Venture.
Thank you.
Let me just hit record. Stop. I mean, not record.
I can imagine that. I had seen the record button, so I knew it was recording.
Let me just hit record and we'll do the whole hour all over again.
I know. I mean, I have enjoyed it, Radmin, but I'm feeling 3 weeks in a row. I do have some work. I didn't realize, honestly, we were hitting an hour. I didn't know we were hitting an hour.
I'm like looking at the time like, oh my God, we're already overrunning Alan's hard time limit.
I know. Emily's like, I'm going to get lunch ready for 12:35 so you can wrap up, come down and then carry on with the stuff. And I'm like, yeah, no worries. Hard finish at 12:30.
Hard finish at 12:52.
Yes.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Just let me stop this so that we can grab the recording.